I experienced what felt like hours of joy and bliss and love, and had this hyper compressed sensibility about everything. And I had this I even the words at the time as a 13-year-old with somewhat like a, I'd say, a limited spiritual vocabulary. I wouldn't use some of the words I would use now, but even then I remember the sentence, "Oh my God, it was love the whole time." Because I'm looking over at the sky and the distance and the clouds and everything in the scene that's going to be an awful scene, but nevertheless, I'm looking at everything and having this experience that, oh my God, I'm in everything. Everything's in me, and the basis of all this is actually love.
I'm here with Ishtar Howell. Ishtar is a meditation teacher, monk, gardener, astrologer, and writer. His childhood was both normal and filled with weird and mystical experiences, anchored in the sense of unity with all things. This unity unfortunately faded at around age 7. Then, at age 13, he experienced a near death experience which propelled him on a spiritual path that came to include many hours of meditation per day while attending high school. Ishtar, thank you so much for being my guest today. I'm really excited to have this time with you.
Oh, yeah, it's a pleasure to you. I'm happy to be here.
We have
Yeah.
a lot to talk about today, and I'm really excited for all the things that we're going to discuss. But let's start out with your near death experience at age 13, so young.
God, that was a whopper. Yeah. Okay. Well, I won't do too much backing up before then, but I'll just put it this way. Like so many other human beings, the I think the spiritual openness that many of us have when we're 2, 3, 4, 5 in those formative years, started to close at about 6 or 7. As we, kind of, I even remember sort of, in a way, consciously being part of the process of developing the old ego, and even some, trying on different bits of egoic clothing each day until one started to stick. And as a kid, I had this, like most other kids, especially, getting to the teen year, a profound desire to be liked. And I have to say, I got pretty good at presenting the face that I thought everybody wanted to see. And so at about age 13, in a way, I kind of felt like I was really good at being an ego self, and then the rug got pulled out, and the universe provided a alarm clock, and so that the first stirring of that alarm clock, I have to say, was uh, almost the last day of school in my seventh grade year. I was playing a baseball game, like the first game of summer baseball league, which was something that I at the time really lived for every year. And I got hit by a pitch and broke my arm, and I didn't know it was broken, so I pitched the next inning. And then we went to the hospital, and then they did an X-ray and said, "You've got a broken arm, kid. You're gonna miss like maybe 2/3 of the baseball season." I was really quite upset by that. That was my problem at the time. And so I was getting ready to go to bed, and I was just sort of having casual conversation with my mother in the evening hours of a nice June night. And all of a sudden, it came through me like a bolt of lightning, really. Words came out of my mouth without me thinking about them at all, and the words were, "Are you going to die soon, Mom?" And that was like a very surprising string of words for me, as much as it was my mother, who was a little bit taken aback by it, uh, which I also thought was kind of strange because she was a fairly I like to use the word formidable around my mother. She was a pretty sort of strong person, a strong-minded, strong personality. She wasn't flappable by stuff like that, but there was something in those words that seemed to, I don't know, come with some sort of power. And then she just sort of collected herself And I said, no, no, I'm not going to die for a while. I'll be around for as long as you need me. And then I just sort of shook it off. I was like, yeah, of course, yeah, wow. Where'd that come from? And went to bed. And the next morning I woke up kind of like a cartoon character, just like that. And as that was happening, my mother and father were walking right outside my open bedroom door, and I was panting as if I was running from somewhere, like I was running into my body. That was the feeling of it, and it felt even like I'd somehow my soul had shot into my body so fast that it physically moved my body bolt upright, and I was just without missing a beat, I was starting to yell at them. I was saying, like, hey, there's something I got to tell you. And I said, there's something I got to tell you. And then I was so frustrated because I forgot what I was supposed to tell them. So as if I'd run so fast that a message fell out of my astral pocket pants or something like that. And they had to come in. So I was really distraught. They had to kind of come in and for a few minutes kind of calm me down, because I was really upset that whatever this message was. And so then they went off, and I got my stuff ready for this. I think it was the last or second to last day of school. I went to school, had a fine day, got to show off my little sling, that my arm was in temporarily, uh, and went home and watched a movie a little bit, and then we took my sister to the movie theater where she was starting to work, and as we were pulling out of the parking lot, we got hit by a car that we didn't see coming. That was actually, it was well behind another car that was visually that was going the speed limit, and the other car wasn't going to come anywhere near to hitting us. But I think this one just decided to pedal to the metal at just the most inopportune time. And I was about to say something to my mother, and I was looking to my left. And as soon as I looked over, right outside her side of the car, right outside her window, was this big old Lincoln. I don't know if it was exactly a Lincoln, but it looked like a Lincoln town car, Continental kind of boxy, going really fast and just right there. I mean, so close I could see the driver's face. He looked like he was out to lunch. I didn't even hear the brakes yet at the point that I looked over. And uh, you have a no prof I did have a I did think shit when I looked over. I have to say that I had time for two thoughts. That was the first one. The second one surprised me because instead of seizing up like I figured I would, because I was fairly certain that this was the end of this life, absolutely certain that neither one of us are going to make it out of this thing. I just figured we were toast. And so my second thought, I was going into this really interesting relaxed space. And so my second thought was I really thought this life was going to last more than 13 years, as if I was very surprised by a sudden change in the script. I was like, huh. Uh, I was completely unattached to the results. I was totally calm with this. Well, okay, if you say so. This being the end, which was actually it completely surprised me at the time. And the next thing I knew, I was being taken into the life review, which I had always been fascinated by the phenomena that people reported of having their life flash before their eyes as a kid. And I thought, oh, I was very skeptical of it. I thought, how could that be? I mean, it must be metaphorical or figurative here. Can't be the whole thing. And I was always curious about that. And then boom, like I am like a tape, seamless, without any lapses. And in fact, as I was experiencing it, it was in more detail than I had experienced it while actually being there. I was seeing everything, like a lot of other people report. I had the sense of not just being in from my own perspective, but being simultaneously and all the perspectives of in any given scene. Funnily, it wasn't even just the other human beings. I was also experiencing myself in the trees, and in the a lot of my memories were schoolyard memories because I was a young kid, and in the chain link fence that was around our playground. and in the wood chips that were underfoot and in the sky. And there was a sense of I was, part of me was completely everywhere. And it wasn't just me who was just watching this as sort of a passive observer. I had with me, or the best words I would have put to it at the time would be like a completely objective aspect of consciousness. I mean, I could use the word, different words. I could use the word God or higher self, which to me are basically synonymous in a way. Of, or it could have been like a just an omniscient spirit guide. I mean, the words aren't that important to me, how it's framed, but in any event, I had been in touch with that aspect of consciousness before, but often kind of would find myself in an argument with it. I kind of like, no, 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 I want to do things my way. I think this is this is good. And they were saying like, okay, so, kind of like, all right, do your thing. And then of course it would, those instances would turn out to be usually comic disasters. Um, but in this case, I was totally comfortable with it, which is another thing that surprised me. I was feeling as if I was like, oh, hey, and we're watching the life and it's pointing out things too. It's saying like, oh, look at this. This is where you were acting out of fear here, and you manipulated the situation, and you could have done it like this, and that would have been cleaner. That would there have been more integrity and purity in that. And each time we'd go through an example like that, there was actually a sense of something being peeled off of me in a good way, some kind of accretion that had been effectively straitjacketing me, or blocking the light, or blocking the love, whatever term we want to use. And we'd also look at other things that I wouldn't have expected. And we would look at sort of we'd stop by certain moments and then be saying, look at that. That is, you want more of that. That one, that was really good. That was what you're here to do. And a lot of those funnily were actually me daydreaming. That's funny. They were a couple of them. One was a random moment from, I think, when I was in third grade, when I was out on the blacktop of the playground looking at a puddle, and it was just starting to rain, and I was watching the droplets go into the puddle, and in doing that, I fell into this vast space of silence and joy. And so this guide that was with me, God, the higher self, was saying like, yep, that's what you're here for. That's what I mean, you specifically are here for, is more of that. And we did a couple other instances that were very similar to that. And that was interesting. I had space in my consciousness to actually note these things like, huh, I wouldn't have guessed that. I still had that kind of agency to think these seemingly independent thoughts. And as we're going through the life, there was this palpable sense even in my body of having some kind of restrictive film taken off, like a plastic suit, like a rubber suit that I didn't know that I was wearing. And the rubber suit was a suit entirely composed of fear, existential tension, of kind of this sort of pushing back against life that didn't need to be there. And so by the time it was off, and for a few split seconds at most, I experienced what felt like hours of joy and bliss and love, and had this hyper compressed sensibility about everything. And I had this, I even the words at the time as a 13-year-old with somewhat like I'd say limited spiritual vocabulary. I wouldn't use some of the words I would use now, but even then I remember the sentence, "Oh my God, it was love the whole time." Because I'm looking over at the sky in the distance and the clouds and everything in the scene, that's going to be an awful scene, but nevertheless, I'm looking at everything and having this experience that, oh my God, I'm in everything, everything's in me, and the basis of all of this is actually love. And wow, I totally missed that, except in the places where I didn't. And so then that was the most alive, in a sense, the most alive I'd felt up to that point in life. Ironically, when I was fully expecting that maybe I'm getting a nice send off. before we're taken out of the body. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular actually, but that was, it's like, huh, here at the end, we're in everything. And then there was impact, and I remember being sent very quickly to my right, and I remember hitting my head very hard against the part of the door. Strangely, I didn't have a bruise, which I felt was odd. My body was a completely limp, relaxed noodle, and I think that probably helped me to survive without spinal issues. It was that I think I was just somehow was put in such a state of relaxed consciousness that the only injury I had in the crash itself was I somehow broke the middle finger on my right hand. So the same arm that was broken. So I went around with a cast where I was basically I couldn't avoid fingering, giving everybody the finger for like a couple months, which in some ways was actually funny and poetic of the moment. But we got hit, and then I came to. We're way far away from the point of impact. I mean, we were like pushed or rolled or something somewhere else, and all I could hear was the seatbelt warning bell going off, and the EMT people and fire department folks using those big skill saws to open the car up on both sides, and then being definitely concussed, taken out, put onto the gurney, uh, and they put us into an ambulance. And I didn't really know anything except I didn't know my name, but I knew that that was my mother over there. That was the only thing that was up in the frontal lobes. And as we're in there, had the whole thing, which a lot of other people report, where I'm both looking out of these eyes and my body at the same time that I'm up at the top of the ambulance, and I feel my mom call out to me a couple times, um, asking if I'm okay, and I answer twice, and she definitely registers a second time or so, I think, because immediately after I felt her breathing, just heard her breathing change to become calm and sort of like letting go. And I didn't put one and one together at the time that I wasn't going to be seeing her anymore in a physical capacity. I just that wasn't nothing was in my head. I kind of felt her, uh, I suppose, almost like breeze past me, which was interesting because when she was talking to me, I was up at the top also of the ambulance, and I felt her words were coming from inside me. And in a sense, I felt we were the same being, just with different facets or something like that. But then I kind of felt, huh. And I didn't put that together. I think that meant that I wasn't going to, be able to have an Earth mom anymore. And, they get us to the hospital. It's all a blur. They're over there behind all these blue curtains. I guess they figure I'm okay, but they still don't know if my spine's good. So I'm just sort of, down on my back with my head and neck secured. And then we hear that my mom's, gone. And so that was devastating. And the next few days were just devastation and grief starting to happen, not being able to take it in and process the all of that yet. And so basically what I found interesting was started maybe a week or a couple weeks in. I'm not entirely sure the days, but as I kind of come out of the initial shock, I start to experience a lot of things which actually I felt, oh, is this shock? Because something that I wasn't expecting was there's this profound peace that was in me, which I mean, last time I had a sense of that was probably my childhood, but I was experiencing it in a very different way since being somebody who developed an ego in between early childhood and then. In fact, I was even using the word bliss to describe what was going on. It was as if there was a timeless, formless dimension inside me, which was the same thing that I was put into right before impact. And something of that was still alive in me. It was strange to me that this would be here because at once I was feeling sadness, anger, all these emotions that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross sort of outlined in the stages of grief, all there. I mean, intensely. I was in the garage punching the wall, angry. I didn't really believe in any particular God at the time, but I was like, if there is a deity, you really screwed up, and why would you take such a good person? Why would you take my mother away from us? It's really upset. And at the same time that all that was happening, there was this deep bliss in my heart, which I thought, wow, this shock thing is pretty good. I should have got myself into shock earlier in life. Uh, and I was also not afraid of anything, which didn't surprise me. I figured, oh God, you probably if you survive death, then you're just not afraid or something like that. But it was beyond that. I wasn't afraid of anything. Like all of the social fears that I had, which were basically as a young teenager, you know, 1 through 5 in a list of 10 of what's your many people are angsty about. They were gone. It didn't matter at all. There was really no reason for me to lie anymore, about little things, the way people do, and they kind of say this over that, this word over that word because they're trying to finesse a social situation. Nothing. There was no reason. I remember once I tried to try and I started laughing internally, like, what are you doing? You don't need to. And I was like, yeah, good call. We don't need to. And so that was wonderful because that was an immense, I had no idea how afraid I was for 13 years or for 6 of 7 of those 13 years or whatever it was. And I had a good life in terms of the world. Not a hard life. And I was like, how, wow, I was this tensed up, and it was an easy life in some ways, amazing. And so there was something profound there. There was also this sense of the silence that I felt inside me was starting to show up in the trees and other people, and in the physical world behind everything, as if which was fascinating. Anytime I would put my attention inside or outside onto this silence, I would have these waves of like delightfully positive energy, pleasant energy flow up my legs, down to the base of my spine, up my torso, out the top of my head. And if I did this long enough, I would get myself into this, internally into such a delightful space. And so I had no idea these were mystical experiences, which later I would classify them as that. I just thought, like, this is interesting. Let's play with this. Let's see what this territory is. I mean, might as well, because the rest of your life currently is not good at all. With your mom being gone. Uh, so that lasted for more or less for 2 or 3 months, and then I tried to be my old self again when the school year started. Uh, and I think it's probably good that I forgot that stuff, because near the end there were a couple people who even kind of noticed that there was a good positive difference in me. Not a lot of people noticed. I mean, on the exterior, I think I might have looked just the same, but a few people noticed, and they said, well, like, what happened? I said, well, you probably have to get really close to dying and then just not. And then we would laugh, because that would be like a really sketchy idea. Uh, so, then I've forgotten the 8th grade year. I did very well, as I tended to do, and had achieved a lot of the little tiny goals that were big to me at the time, that I had been thinking of for years, and it was so empty. It was in part profoundly empty. And when the next summer came around, I was really so keen to try to get back to whatever that was that happened a year before. I was so curious about that. It felt like there was something profound in that I couldn't leave. And I didn't know how to get back there, so I started like jumping out of golf carts that were moving at full speed and jumping from heights. I didn't like heights, so I thought that scares me. I should do things that are frightening to me, and so I was doing them. Thank God I didn't get seriously injured. I was very lucky. I came very close to breaking my arm a couple occasions, but didn't. And so I went on the second occasion. I'm like, okay, I don't want to get in trouble with my dad here. He's gone through enough as it is. I can't be coming home with broken arms because I'm doing whatever. And so then I started telling people things that I found embarrassing about myself. And just it didn't matter who, just I started being out, but then I ran out of embarrassing things. So I wasn't getting the rush of going through the fear and shedding it anymore. So I didn't know what to do. And then I was with my sister one day and she wanted to go to a metaphysical shop to buy some stuff. And I had no interest in the metaphysical shop because all I saw was the windows and it was little stained glass things and wind chimes and incense. And none of those things appealed to me. So, but I went in and then I went in the back and I opened up a book at random and it was about the meditative experiences of Himalayan yogis. And so I just opened to a page at random and started reading. And they were talking about this thing called samadhi, and I was like, what, as the more I read, the more I was, well, like, what? Because these experiences were so similar to what I'd been through that I thought, yeah, could these be the same? And it not dawned on me, even though I had an interest in all these sorts of things on the back burner, because little Tommy Howell in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, with all his faults, and I thought, those experiences are probably not going to come into this life. That was what I was thinking. And then reading this book, I was like, this is fascinating. I was so hooked. And so then and there, a spiritual seeker was born. And I was just reading anything and everything that I could get my hands on. And often when I would read things, this was my system at the time. I would even touch a book and I would get this sense of this kind of bliss energy moving up my spine, like it was tingling up at the top of my head. And I decided that's probably a good sign. I didn't know if it was good or bad, but I decided it's probably a good sign that I should be reading this book or something in it. So I was operating like that for a while, and I'm very grateful that into my life a variety of different friends and older friends who turned out to be wonderful mentors and spiritual guides decided to live in my little town of Lake Geneva for my high school years, or most of my high school years, because uh, like, one of them in particular was a local uh, transcendental meditation teacher and clairvoyant, and she was I think she was the first person that when I was in her presence, something I could feel something alive inside her, which was the same as that silence and that bliss and that presence. And I started to find that in different people, and especially in these mentors who came into my life. And eventually, at some point, I knew I needed to do some kind of meditation practice, but actually, I was quite I was a little bit afraid to do it. Uh, and my fear was actually maybe an odd one. My fear was that if I do it, I'll have to do it all the way. And if I open that door, I was at the time still trying to have a conventional life and do right by my family and maybe do right by me before 13 and what I thought I wanted to do and be. And I was saying we can't open up that door because if we do that, it might blow up this more conventional life plan that I had at the time. And it certainly did. So I was absolutely we were absolutely right about that. But I'm glad that we opened that door. It actually had the sense that there was a like a crazy monk somewhere inside me that was trying to get out. And I was really quite nervous because it felt like so much wildness and passion and love and energy down there. And I was like, oh God, no, we have to, you know, keep things under control here. And so at some point, around age 17, I just decided, okay, we're just going to have to do this. Let's do it. We need to meditate 6 hours a day. I don't know why I came 6 hours a day. Some book told me that. In other words, I had the sense I have to do this fully because I can't give it short shrift. So then that's what we did, and we started with like probably very bad meditation practices for my disposition, but we persevered and did all these concentration practices, and the qigong was more pleasant, and yoga asanas, and uh, I suppose microcosmic breathing meditations, which actually were fairly interesting and I think supporting, and just a little potpourri. And uh, I was given the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. I think by my first brother-in-law. I'm not quite sure. I think that must have come from him at the time. And just reading that book at that time, I think I was primed for it. I'd been meditating for 6 hours a day for several months at that point. So opening up that book, it felt like some wonderful explosion happened in my heart again. And I would feel like almost felt like someone was pouring honey into and on top of my head, while reading it. And something changed in my path. I remember I came to I had been writing emails and giving phone calls to different monasteries around the US of various traditions. I really wasn't attached to anyone. I just wanted a place where I could go and be a contemplative or meditate and maybe do service work to pay for my existence. And although some of them were very pleasant and had wonderful brochures, none of them felt quite right. And so one night I had just finished reading this chapter in autobiography of a yogi on Babaji and this immortal master. And Yogananda made a promise in the book that says anybody who prays to Babaji will be heard by Babaji. And I said, like, well, I doubt I'll be heard, but let's give it a try. Shall we? It can't hurt to try. So when we got to when I got to my deepest point in meditation, I decided to fling that desire up there to Babaji from my heart. Like, please help me find the monastery or path that I need to be walking, because I know I'm not on my home path right now, and none of the things I've sent out for have the right resonance. I just know it. So please help me. And to my surprise, I was given an answer, which was strange. I had this more of that sense of honey being poured into my head, but only it felt like kind of like a ball, and in a way. And it came with sort of a pitch frequency, a musical frequency that I could hear. And basically there was narration that said, pay attention to this frequency next time it comes. That'll be a good clue. And of course, I wasn't standoffish, but I was skeptical. I was like, okay, so by imagination, hopefully this is not some dodgy astral entity. And I was like, it doesn't feel dodgy, you know. Um, God knows if this is Babaji, but okay, we'll see what happens here. I didn't usually put much stock in signs and stuff like that. Made up my mind up here usually, but this was interesting. So I think it was a couple days later. It might have been the next day, but I think it was 2 days later. I was walking home from picking up trash downtown, trying to put myself in service uh, as part of my sort of self-made monastic path. And as soon as I got on my block, where in which my house was, I started hearing that pitch. And the closer I got to home, the louder it got. It got really loud when I saw and then heard my brother-in-law, or soon to be brother-in-law, saying, "Hey, you want to come to a meditation class with us this weekend?" And I was like, I was famous for saying no to almost every social engagement, because I tell you, it's a lot of work to do 6 hours of meditation a day as an 18-year-old high schooler. You have to say no to a lot of things. I found myself a huge yes coming out. I was like, all right. And I've, I went to that weekend workshop, and it was a very different sort of practice than the ones that I was doing. And for me, 45 seconds into doing their first mantric technique, I was back in the deepest part of the NDE. Essentially, I was back into that unitive, blissful frequency, totally in my body too, because I really didn't know it, but I was quite out of my body, but I was so comfortable that I could be in my body, again. And it was just, I mean, so much bliss and silence for 2.5 days. And by the end of that course, uh, I was telling the two teachers who taught us this, I was like, hey, do you have a monastery or something? Because I've been getting ready to go to one. I can settle my affairs. I think I used that very adult phrase. I can have my affairs settled in 48 hours. And they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we just sold our monastery, but there's some people out there who've got meditation centers, so you might try finding some of them." So I said, "Okay, thanks." And that, it between that and being in a monastery in Oregon, so 2,200 miles away from where I lived, that was about 3 months, I think. almost 3 months exactly. So not very long. It felt like a long time to me, but obviously not very long at all. And that. That was home. And a lot of the things that I had wanted to get back to all just kind of came along the way at different points, including in a sense reuniting with my mom in a very powerful way. I was in probably the middle of a 6 month teacher training program, and I was going to the bathroom. And when I got to the sink to wash my hands, I looked up into the mirror in front of me. And in a non-creepy way that didn't scare me at all, my mother's face was staring out of my face, not in, aside from the physical resemblance that's there between mothers and sons, but it was deeper than that. And also I could kind of see her face, and there was a sense of, this is, communicated to me. This is why things happened the way they did. This is where we needed to get you. We had to get you. We had to get you to an ashram. We had to get you onto the path, so to speak. Um, so that was quite beautiful. I really romped through that.
You've had some amazing experiences throughout your life. Um, and the reconnection with your mother is just life changing. I mean, that must have really just shook the ground, even though all these things that have happened to you have happened. And then you reunite with your mother, because I know that it was heartbreaking for me just to hear the story about how you lost your mother. How
Mm,
did that change? Did that change anything for you moving forward from that point about death and the afterlife?
mm. Oh God, absolutely. I think my body, thankfully, the body is still able to like get freaked out when it's about to step off a cliff or step in front of a London city bus. But the existential fear never really came back, and that was marked because up until the NDE, actually, I have to say that was the thing that scared me the most, as was the ending, or the what the hell is that going to be? And yeah, that was gone. So that shifted things around quite a bit. Didn't get rid of existential suffering though. That's a different weed with deeper root structures, I think. But yeah, that changed things. I think it made me more willing to more courageous as well. Can you be more courageous if you're less fearful? Yeah, maybe not. I'm not sure. It certainly made me more capable of I think going and doing some bold things that otherwise that were even at the time very difficult, like going to an ashram at 18, not going to school when I could, and yeah, having everyone think you're kind of, off your rocker, even sometimes myself, right? It made me able to do those things. I'm so glad that I did. I thank my younger self, or in a way, every day for being able to do some of those, make some of those calls, because wow, the things that were in the heart, the whole time, sometimes without me knowing it, got to come to fruition. Of mm. And I was also even given another mother in a way, which was to me the same mother. Put it that way. I was uh, when I was 15, I was walking around uh, like under a cold night sky. I loved cold Wisconsin winter nights, especially my town. Big, big, lots of stars if there wasn't cloud coverage. And I went to the corner that was on the block across from where I was. I wasn't far from home, but I had it come into my heart that I should ask God. I wasn't even thinking about it. So I said, God, or whoever's up there, could you give me a mother? And as I was being very vulnerable, talking to the sky, it was really true. I was saying, if you've been paying attention, I've not been doing very well. I'm not doing very well at all. And I could use some help. And then as soon as I asked that bizarre question that I didn't think of, that just kind of came out, I felt like somebody was standing to my right side, but in a non-scary way again. And I felt strangely both the sky talking and something to the side, like whispering in my ear, saying, I'll be your mother." I was like, "Okay, yeah, well, who are you?" You know, and they said, "Well, I'm the dark goddess of destruction." And those words didn't put me off at all. In fact, they somehow, that combination of words made complete sense. And in my mind was like, well, of course, my mother has always been this dark goddess of destruction. It felt, and it didn't feel like a negative string of words at all. It felt completely positive in a way. And I said, like, okay, well, great. And you know, then I never heard from this being again. I would sometimes walk out to the same spot, you know, on winter nights, and I'd say, you know, kind of wait around, see if anyone's gonna talk to me, and no one ever did. And then a few years later, I was going to a monastery attached to my meditation practice, the place I went at 18. And one of the head teachers, you know, coincidentally, I'd say synchronistically, was named Kali. And I had no idea. I wasn't familiar with that name really at all, even though I read Autobiography of a Yogi. I don't think I tracked, you know, what Kali means in the footnotes. And then came to realize that Kali was the goddess of the benevolent, ultimately goddess of destruction. And I thought, you know, when I later found that out, I remembered that scene on the street corner. I was like, huh, you know, thanks for taking care of me. And looking back, I could see a lot of those qualities in my Earth Mother. Uh, you know, and I was like, yeah, you know, this being's been, you know, taking kind of taking care of the whole time. Uh, so that was a also poignant uh, moment on the path.
That
Mm.
is, yeah, that's incredible. So you've not heard from this dark goddess of destruction again?
Oh God, no, no, I have, but I think I heard much more because you know, I had a physical fractal for 6.5 years of life in pretty close quarters. So that I have to say that that counts. But the vaster, you know, Kali, of I feel with me uh, so much of the time, and in my heart, wrapped around me, surrounding me, impelling me. Uh, yeah, that there's a part that the deepest part of my heart feels kind of feels like a forest fire in a good way. Kind of feels like yeah, let's sink into that black hole. Let's let go into the totality. That's sort of the core feeling in there. Which is why that so-called destructive energy, that word used in that context, it never put me off because that's what I think I innately associate it with is that, you know, let's relax. Let's just, you know,
So is the
be.
destructive energy kind of like destroying the things that aren't true?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Destroying all the crap, you know, that we produce where, you know, we're fighting against love, basically. To me, I mean, the destructive energy is love. I mean, it doesn't in the way we use the word love, it that doesn't seem like to be the case. But when I meditate on it more deeply, it's like, no, love doesn't accept artificial boundaries. The, you know, it will move through them like a rushing river and erode whatever, like water erode whatever doesn't need to be there. And so yeah, to me it's just it's a facet of love.
And the way you
Yeah.
describe it, it makes sense. I wouldn't have, before this conversation, put destruction and love in the same context,
No.
like to mean the same thing. But now that you describe it like that, yes, it totally makes sense that way.
Yeah.
Um, I want to go back to your life review because you had a very different experience, I feel, than what is typically kind of experienced, where you had just the rain or the water dropping into the water and that very deep peace and almost maybe like a trance-like state came over you, and that was what God was like, yes, more of that, more of that. That to me is very interesting. Did that kind of help shape you when you came back, like what decisions that you need to make for your life?
You know, oddly, it didn't. You would think it would, but looking back, it's like it's not like I forgot about that content. That content was like more real than real, but something up in the noggin or somewhere wasn't putting, absurdly obvious things together. And yeah, so it kind of didn't. So I was still kind of like a little bit blind, even though I was being given the information. So the universe, I think, or God was very patient um, with this one. Yeah, but later on, then when I finally made the path and I kind of made the decision, I was like, oh, of course, retroactively, like this, we're the purpose of this life is, at least one of the purposes of this life is to be pretty engaged with meditation practice, and and whatever happens after that, we'll see.
And why
Yeah.
is that? What does meditation do for us specifically?
And for me, it was the best way to get back to that that pure space of early childhood or NDE or whatever. It's been a way to heal my nervous system. It's been a way, without having to have much agency in doing that. It's been a way for all these tensions that I was aware of. It was been a way for all these tensions to fall off. It was very interesting. Eventually, the practice that I got involved with, a practice called Ascension meditation, it was very effortless, which was very different than some of the, sort of the hard, I'd say Zenish type stuff that I was doing. And once I tuned into that effortless practice, there was this profound bliss started to be just a regular occurrence in practice, and a profound silence. And something about going into that bliss and silence would have the effect of finally like rewiring the psychology, or jettisoning those tensions which I'd been trying to get rid of through other means for years, but with no success. And the way I think of it is that the silence that's found, I can use silence in quotes because the word is not, any words that we apply to that deepest layer of meditation are not, fully accurate. So that there's my disclaimer. All the language I'm using, it's just pointers. But anytime touching that place where self and God connect, and any time touching that seems to just have wondrous manifold effects on all sorts of areas of life, including just having skill sets that I'd always wanted to have, but didn't have, sort of manifest easily, like in a very simple way, but maybe it doesn't sound very exciting. I'd always wanted to be better with my hands. Because I had a grandfather who was very good with his hands. And, I thought like, man, I wish I could be like Grandpa Oscar a little bit more in that capacity, but I seem to have like 10 thumbs. And I'd get kind of frustrated with myself. And then not long after getting into this practice, I would approach a practical situation. Somehow I would just know how to do it. And I wouldn't make a mess or be a klutz, because I was, also had this kind of like tendency to, like trip over things, maybe have things fall down, and stuff like, it's very comedic, but not very helpful if you want to do something practical. So stuff like that would happen. Uh, I probably improved my basketball game as well. I was a good basketball player, but I remember going to, dropping into the YMCA one time, and everybody was going in slow motion. And I was just able to, make steals that I would, that they were well outside my range of that I should even be attempting. And so I think that was a part of finding that I was going into the flow state much more frequently, and being in that, and just without doing anything. And so I really do attribute that to regular meditation practices that I was engaged in.
So not
Yeah.
only it can help us spiritually understand or connect with our pure essence, but it can also help us physically. And I think it can
Yeah.
help with our health, with our blood
Yeah.
pressure and
Oh, yes.
stress and all of those
Yes.
other things. There's so many benefits to meditation. You're a meditation teacher, right? As I understand.
Yeah, I got it. I've for 20 years at this point. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how do you teach meditation? Is
Well,
it just telling people, okay, sit in the corner, be quiet, breathe in and breathe out, and just clear your mind?
no, I mean that's not the common way that I do it, though that there's maybe nothing wrong with that way either. I tend to have people come for either I do one-on-one or we'll do longer weekend courses, and I'll basically teach people different uh, I'll call them prayer mantras, and I'll teach them how to use them effortlessly. And a lot of my job is I've mucked up the practice 10 ways till Sunday myself. So I know all these ways that you can make something very simple into something very difficult. And so I'm pretty good at uh, seeing or hearing when another person is doing something similar, kind of gently directing them to be a little bit more effortless with it. But that's basically what I do is teach people how to listen to what I think are songs of the divine, and you know how to sort of effortlessly appreciate these prayers and these mantras, and follow them back into source. And so yeah.
I love that because I can vouch for meditation being more difficult than probably it needs to be because I just want to go in all these different directions and then it becomes overwhelming and then I just end up not doing it. Um,
Mm.
so I can see how you could use some guidance and someone that's been along that path and tips and tricks and learning to listen to those songs, like you said. That sounds beautiful. How can my viewers reach you if they wanted to talk to you about that or if they have questions for you?
Oh, the best way is to send a message through one of my websites. There's all sorts of, contact here boxes, and I have a meditation website, and then I have for a very different work than that, I have a astrological website, and either or both, you can get contact that way.
Wonderful. And if you had one message to leave the audience with today, one thing that you'd want them to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
It's been love the whole time. You've been love the whole time. That's what I want them to take away. Just to open to that as a possibility, even if it seems like completely ridiculous and completely far-fetched and maybe foreign to, the hardness of day and day experience, to just take in, just briefly open to the possibility that you at essence are actually made of love and magic, and that your personality self that you experience in many ways is so small compared to the vastness of who each and every one of us really is.
It's a lovely message. If you knew nothing else, that's a beautiful way to live.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ishtar. This has been a pleasure for me and very eye opening. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk with us today.
Oh, it's fun and a pleasure, and I'm very happy to be uh, part of this little digital campfire with the stars overhead that we have going here.
Love it.
Uh, Lovely.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.